Talking tonight, this evening, to Quin Sweetman, one of Portland's more exciting and fun traditional painters. Would you consider yourself a traditional painter, or how would you consider yourself?
Yeah.
What have the critics said about you?
Well, if anybody says anything, they tend to call me an impressionist. But I mean, impressionism's old enough that we could now consider it traditional too.
Yeah.
A little bit looser than showing more brushstrokes than sometimes the more traditional oils.
Would the term alla prima fit you?
Yes, yeah, mostly, yeah, because that's like all at once or in one sitting. And so it often is my goal, not the only way I paint, but it often is my goal to try to, especially if I'm outdoors painting, to try to capture something of that energy and that motif. Like the light is constantly changing and you just have to kind of let your experience take over, and sometimes let the happy accidents happen.
You got to work like hell.
Yeah.
And with some rhythm and serious purpose, if you're gonna beat the sun down. And especially like when some painters, and I've been in this situation where you're being attacked by mosquitoes or chiggers, and so you're wanting to get the heck out of there and to get back to the car.
Yeah.
It's going to rain or something.
Oh, yeah.
So that's also the kind of the alla prima, like, oh my gosh factor. I got to work faster and faster.
Yeah, definitely. Those factors combined with the light changing, constantly. And I love to paint the ocean. That's why I'm part of this project. But and the ocean is constantly moving and tides changing. So yeah, trying to paint quick, though I don't think it's not the only goal. It's just it does kind of help when you're trying to capture like energy. The ocean, yeah, to kind of have those brushes.
And that leads me to the next question also, with the section of the coastline that you picked. Is that an area that you do feel that spiritual connection to?
Yeah, it's Cape Arago and some lovely places that I like to hike around there. It's a little bit north of Bandon, which I think is just a beautiful area of the coast. Not quite as popular to people in Portland because it takes about 5 hours to get there, but I love those there's the coolest rock formations there, just beautiful, giant. And the place specifically that I was painting from for the 7th generation piece was Shore Acres. And that area, I think that the rocks tend to look like they've got little like moonscapes happening. There's weird, cool things where creatures in time have done
with
interesting things. Yeah, so they're just they really have personality.
That's true. Bandon is really very charismatic. If you're thinking about the Oregon coast and what would be the archetype of the coastline, that area north of Bandon, I would have to agree. Every rock, every tree, and little tiny beach has, a little microcosm of the rest of the Pacific coastline, especially the Oregon coastline.
Yeah.
Whenever I've painted along the coast, I get kind of entranced, like by the sound of the waves and the birds, etc., and the wind. And I find myself kind of slipping in and out of a meditative spot, consciously and subconsciously. I always wonder how that shows up in a painting. For each of us, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it shows up as happy accidents, where you didn't mean to paint something, but it turns out to be the best mark that you made. But
yeah,
how does it show up for you, that kind of that space, that more meditative space in your work?
Yeah, I would say that if I'm really in the zone, that's kind of a meditative place, I guess. And you just settle into a spot and you're really in love with what you're viewing. Then I think it becomes almost like playing music or something. Like if you've loved something about a specific set of notes or something, I'm not a great musician by any means, but some of that just becomes like intuitive, like how are you going to represent this thing you're trying to represent? And for me, with the brush and with the colors, when it's happening well, like I am in the zone, then it's just sort of starts to flow. And
like you have a chair in the symphony behind the cello, maybe, or the violins or something. You're part of that symphony.
Right. Yeah, you're just kind of there participating, and you hope to capture a little, let all the notes, flow and capture a little bit of what you're experiencing. But it doesn't always work out, of course, when you're doing that. But when you get in the zone and you're really you're feeling it, it's a wonderful space. And it's interesting because sometimes it's your early stuff. If you let it just kind of more of the brush marks show and don't spend too much time trying to make it pretty or cover up those marks that you might think look scribbly. Sometimes that's the most interesting thing too. And trying to learn.
You have to kind of refuse to critique your own work during that phase, and not worry about it as much. If you don't mind me saying, the painting that you did there of the coast, I think, to possibly answer your question, or my question to you, sorry, about how it manifests, it seems like to me that the meditative space in the painting that I've seen shows up in the atmosphere. Like your paintings have kind of an all-inclusive atmosphere that seems to materialize. Whether you like it or not, it's there, And so possibly that's it. It's such a hard thing to strive for. You can strive for it, but you can't always arrive there. We all want to be on the moon at some point, but can't really get there. But you've got, even in the paintings behind you, you've got a kind of an ethereal, continuous, cohesive movement in the atmosphere, which I think would set your work apart from most of the alla prima painters. Notice I'm trying not to say plein air because I'm so tired of that phrase.
Oh, yeah. You have to tell me why you're tired of it. Is it because there's sort of like a look or something?
There's such a clique around it. It's like what all the cool kids are wearing, like Nikes or something. It's like this thing that distinguishes what some think are like real painters from studio painters. I paint a lot of nightscapes, and started painting those in Chicago, and people started asking me, I couldn't believe it, did you paint that on location? I was like, have you ever stood in the middle of Michigan Avenue at 2 a.m.? You know, and they call it the Windy City for a reason. Right. You know, and that's a 5 foot by 6 foot canvas you're looking at. I don't think I'm going to be on Michigan Avenue with that sucker.
No, you get blown away.
So when I tell them that no, I painted it in the studio, there's kind of a dismissive thing like, oh, well then you're not a real artist, you know, that kind of thing. And
that's crazy.
It's like, I'm so sorry you're so narrow-minded, so-and-so, you know, like that's all you can think of when it comes to painting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some painters, more painters than people. Like the general public, they want to ask questions, and sometimes they may have heard that, but otherwise they just want to know more about your process and do they like it or not, right? And art history, I know that there's a part of the plein air because I love, as an outdoors person also, that's part of the plein air thing for me. But it's not the be all end all. I love to paint people, and there are scenes that I can only kind of capture from, or parts of scenes from a photo too. So it's really, you know, I think it's just the people who really care about it, who aren't the snobs. They just care about the being out and being in it and feeling it and getting some of that energy in your work, right?
Yeah, I found that I can mimic the plein air look, that rhythm, when I'm in my studio, only because I've done enough plein air outside, right, that's how my hand works anyways with a brush. I haven't just severed the hand off of somebody else and using it to do these paintings.
Right.
It's still the same rhythm or the same decisions, except for, you know, dealing with the sunlight and the movement of shadows and things. But the atmosphere in your work, especially in the painting that you did on the coast, we're going to show that painting here in a minute for those of you who want to follow along. I'm going to use the skills of the technicians of the film industry here, and we know how to do things like that and make it look, you know, like a seamless edit, something that looks really good like that. So those are skills that I don't have with film. I spend too much of my time behind the easel, you know, not at a keyboard or some kind of editing machine. But nevertheless, I'm asking all the artists this same question here. So I want to ask you, this particular mile of coastline that you picked was obviously resonated with you. So if there was somewhere else, anywhere else on the planet that you could do a mile of, where would it be? What length of somewhere else? You know, like, would it be Tuscany, or would it be Provence, or Utah somewhere?
I was just in Upper Normandy at Etretat, where Monet painted a lot of his beautiful seascapes with the rock spires. And so I'd say there, because I hiked around there and did like a little sketch, but that was all I was able to do because we were traveling. My husband and I, was our 20th wedding anniversary, so we were on the move, like going from place to place. But I got to hike it, and I got to sit there for a minute and look out. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be up here with a big canvas? Just so stunningly beautiful, these white cliffs. And Yeah, so that would be my first answer. I mean, I'd love to paint other places too, but that's top of my mind right now. I'm just going, got to make that happen.
And where that North Sea meets up there with Europe is very similar to Oregon in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
I can see you painting that.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. We're so lucky in Oregon, aren't we? That we, I mean, there's nothing else like it really, but that coastline is especially beautiful. I love how it changes throughout the different regions. All of them beautiful, but all different.
Yeah. Quin, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
So most of your inspiration and most of your painting is done on location. Is that that fair? Yeah. How much of your work do you finish in your studio?
You know, I would say most of the time, probably a very small, maybe 10%. It's really a small finishing. Now, because I really do try to get what I want out of being on location. And sometimes when I take them back in the studio, I kill. Like if I keep working on something, I kill. Part. I don't even know I'm killing like this thing that actually was kind of, you know, had a rhythm that was all about that time and space. So I don't do it very often. I will sometimes, if I know something's really not working, sometimes I'll try to like purely by design fix or see if something comes out. But most of the time I really don't fix it. But that being said, I like Randy sometimes create stuff in the studio using those ideas and trying to use similar colors and brushwork too when I'm on location. But I don't do that much as far as like from photos, but you know, do the models like you live, and then a lot of still lifes because I love flowers. They're so interesting, right? They're just, you can break them down into abstract shapes.
This July, you can have the amazing experience of seeing Quin Sweetman's work at the Lincoln City Cultural Center. And we are very excited about that. She's an amazing artist, and as Randy has pointed out, she has a very unique quality to the paintings that stands out. And we're very fortunate to have her as an artist for the project. So Randy, I think we're saying good night for now. This is for the viewers. This is 7:30 at night. And Quin, thank you so much for
Quin Sweetman
part of this.
.com, correct?
Yes, quinsweetman.com. Yeah, Quin with one N.
One N, yeah.
Okay, good night, and we will see everybody later.
Good night, John.
Nice to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care, paint hard.
Yeah, you too. Look forward to seeing more. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.